Welcome to Tigrai Media House. My name is Maliti Brahana Mescal. I have a particularly powerful show for you today, partially because of the content, but more so because of the individual being interviewed. Young Tigrayans have accomplished the unthinkable, the impossible over the past 22 months. This is true for Tigrayans in Tigray, but also in the diaspora. Their intentions are pure and earnest and honest, and that's why they've had so much success. Their intentions are simply just to free their families. So today's guest is no exception. I'm really honored to have Moses Hayalom on the show today. Welcome to the show, Moses.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm curious. Like I said in the opening remarks, I'm really curious about what drives young Tegaru, and you've been so successful in all that you've done. But first, let's just talk about why we're here today. Your group, you're with the Tigray community of Ohio, and your group successfully petitioned the Columbus City Council on a resolution calling for peace in Ethiopia and specifically about Tigray. Tell us a little bit about this resolution, how it came to be, and what that moment was like in City Hall when you got this resolution passed.
So we were able to connect with our local leaders here in Columbus, and we were able to inform them about what is going on back home. And every chance that we got here, we let everyone know where we're from and what is occurring. And so our city council members, we happen to have a restaurant here in Columbus, and so our slogan is American Fare with Aksum Flair. And so that encourages our customers and guests to ask us, what is Aksum? And then we can inform them about our rich cultural history, but we also let them know what is going on. And then also we have flyers that are by our registers that people pick up and they are informed that way. And it happens to be that all walks of life come and eat in our restaurant. And even we go out to the community and speak to so many people to let them know. And it happened to be that the president of our city council comes and eats in our restaurant. And he encouraged us and said, hey, if this is what's going on, why don't you present to city council? And so we said, all right, great. What do we need to do? And he let us know that, well, we meet on Mondays. It's free to the public. Just register and get your statement together. And so I called Gurmai in Seattle and I asked him to help me with our statement. And we decided that our messaging strategy would be peace, stability, passing these bills, and for us to advocate for refugee resettlement and to get in touch with international humanitarian aid organizations to bring forward more awareness. And so we found that through our struggle of trying to connect with so many different government officials that the grassroots level is where action can happen. It's accessible. And this is what allows us to inform the whole city of what's going on in our community. So
That's
we wanted
powerful.
to show that that was attainable.
That's powerful. Sometimes you feel like you're in these moments and they seem insignificant, but you have
Mhm.
no idea what a conversation will lead to or what a certain interaction will lead to. I just want to repeat your slogan. It's American Fare with Aksum Flair. I really like that. So it's an American. What's the name of your restaurant, and what kind of food do you sell?
Our restaurant is called Flavor 91 Bistro, and we serve all natural grass fed burgers and sandwiches. We source locally from Ohio farms. We have vegan and vegetarian options. We make everything in house from scratch. All of our food is non GMO, no antibiotic, hormone free. And we started in 2016 to solve the problem in our community because there's only fast food in our neighborhood. No local options, no vegan and vegetarian options is unheard of. And
Mm.
so by us stepping forward and doing that in our community, our reputation has grown and we've made a lot of great relationships throughout the years. And now it's come to fruition for us to use it to advocate for what's going on back home. So it's come hand in hand. So we thank God for that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Something as simple as just having a flyer by the register.
Mhm.
Some people feel like you shouldn't mix politics and business.
Right.
Have you heard that before? People said that before. What's your opinion about mixing politics and business?
I'll tell you what Dr. Henoch told us. And he said that business is the backbone of politics. There would be no government officials or elected officials who have credibility if it wasn't for the businesses that actually do the work and the change in the communities that they rely on to get them in those positions. And so it goes hand in hand in a lot of ways. it's important to protect yourself and to be aware, and do your due diligence. But when you're doing the work in your community, it's undisputed, and politicians, public servants, those folks, they want to be in alignment with you.
Absolutely. And I also firmly believe that everything is politics, whether you eat, whether you live, whether you die, how your business functions, all of it, whether you get a good education, all of it is politics. It's impossible to separate those two things. So kudos to not being afraid of that. I want you to talk about the significance of the resolution, because it's one thing to go before your city council and just say, here's what's happening in my hometown or in my, where I'm from in the world, where my parents were born. By the way, where were you born? Were you born here?
Yeah, I'm first generation born here in
Okay. All
Virginia.
right. So you're talking about your elders. You're talking about where your mother was born, where your grandparents were. I want to talk about how the resolution came to be, and also one thing I'm really impressed about. We'll talk about this just a little bit later, but I just want to read some of what's in this resolution. So I'm on, somewhere down toward the end of the resolution, but it says, whereas the city of Columbus supports the passage of HR 6600, the Ethiopian Stabilization, Peace and Democracy Act, and S 3199, the Ethiopian Peace and Stabilization Act of 2022, two bipartisan bills introduced in the House of Representatives and Senate that seek to bring about a peaceful resolution and conflict to the conflict in Ethiopia. And it goes on to talk about more about the hopes of the city council for peace in the Horn and specifically in Ethiopia and specifically in Tigray. So tell me about why this resolution is significant to you, and also how you got to that point, because you went from just addressing your city council to a resolution.
Mm-hmm. So firstly, what people need to understand is that your city council has a lot of power and influence. For example, here in Columbus, they've set aside hundreds of thousands of dollars for Ukrainian refugees. In 2021, they invited and welcomed 400 Afghani refugees as they were escaping Afghanistan, and did a year's worth of free residential assistance. So they lived here for free for 12 months to help them get on their feet and to assimilate them into Columbus. So when we realized how influential our city council can be on an international level, how it affects us locally, and their goals, which is to bring 1,600 more refugees into Columbus in the next year, I realized that these are the right people that we need to be speaking with and pushing for that resolution. And that was one of the things that they told us they could do for us. And they said, hey, if you put your foot forward, if you do the right advocacy, and if you present and you follow through, then we can do the same for you. And so we thought to ourselves, okay, that's a no-brainer. Let's get this going. And also on top of it, we recognize that our city council is well connected. Your city council is too, wherever you are, and you never know who they know. And the reason why this was a very strategic move on our part was because when you work on the local level, that is actually the first link in the chain of command. And so the chain of command goes to the state level, to the city, county, state, and then the federal level. And so those individuals, those steps, that process, it allows you to open up new doors for yourself. And so I know you're going to talk about the process later on, but that was what our mindset was. And the more we informed ourselves, we realized we can really get something done here.
What's smart about what you said too is you asked what they can do for you. I think sometimes we go into situations and we don't know. We have no idea what's possible. Instead of going in and thinking we have to have all the answers, you can go into these settings and say, here's my situation. How can you help me? What is possible? I think that's a really smart way to approach this. Again,
and also leaning on the Tagarus in so many different communities that are doing this work, like Gurmai being in Seattle. He was a great resource. Dr. Henok, another great resource. Abai, Azana, all these different individuals who are doing the work. If we connect with them, then we can also inform ourselves, what can they do for us too? And also looking at, I did some research on Google, and I said, what has City Council done for the Ukrainian community? What have they done for Afghani community? All of this is public information. So, it's dual. You can ask them, you can look into your own resource network, and then use Google as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, and not reinventing the wheel. So now you've done this successfully. So what's important for young Tagaru is, because we have a lot of energy. You all have a lot of energy, but instead of using that energy to do the same thing that someone else has already done, we can build on that. And so yeah, that's a great point. There's a lot of resource in our community, a lot of resources. So still, some people will brush this off. They'll say, but still, it's city council. So yeah, you could probably get some help with refugees, perhaps allocate some dollars, perhaps, which is the big deal. I don't take that lightly. But how do you think something like a city council resolution can help with these peace bills, the Ethiopian peace bills? It feels like these peace bills are stuck, and we're trying to figure out. They're bipartisan. There's support out there for them, but they're stuck. Like if you think of a cog in a wheel, it's just like the thing is stuck. So you're trying to figure out, how do I get this turning again? This is pretty novel. I don't think that we've really heard of taking this type of an approach. So tell me how you think something like getting these resolutions passed in cities across the country could potentially help us with legislation at the federal level.
Right. So where it starts is when you can get in touch with your city council, the local level, and they pass a resolution, that comes with a lot of influence. That comes with a citywide declaration on the record to advocate with your community. And when you take that and you take it to the next level, who else they can connect you with, usually it's the next level in the chain of command or even further through the chain of command. That gives the next person, whether it's on the state representative level, context, and also it's their language. If they see a resolution is passed by the predecessor of an office that has that influential room to work with, then they're going to open the door to you as well. It's not just someone coming out of the blue, informing them from scratch and seeing where they can help us. You know what? Their colleague has also advocated on behalf of you. So there's accountability there as well. So now you're able to take that leverage and use it strategically to the next level. And then that can be used again to the next level because the state representatives can also do a resolution for you as well. The county can do a resolution for you as well. And in the midst of this, there are dollars that the city and the county have that they can allocate to your community, especially if you're nonprofit, especially if you're from a minority community. All of this being wrapped up to help you get to the next level and get another resolution passed. And as you go through these different levels, you will eventually get to the federal level. And that comes with all those relationships that you built across the way. That's why it's important. So that's what we've seen.
And you're right, you're building a groundswell. So you're starting with your support at the bottom and pushing it up instead of just shooting straight for the top. So
100%.
very interesting. Did you have to do a lot of educating to the city council to get them on board, to help them understand what was happening? Or did they seem to understand already what was happening in Tigray and in greater Ethiopia? What was that like?
Yeah, we had to educate them a lot. And we still are educating even the next levels as we continue to scale up. And it's not a difficult thing. We're getting tighter on how we present and using our time wisely. And usually it's met with compassion and the immediate human response of what can I do to help. There had been one lady who already knew, but she was an aide, which definitely helped because she was able to say, hey, this is a serious thing. This is a genocide. And I was surprised how well she was informed, but everyone else across the board had no idea. And it's okay, but we just need to make sure that we use our time wisely on how we educate, and we keep the narrative the same, where we're advocating for peace, stability, we're advocating for these bills to be passed, and we are highlighting the humanitarian crisis that's occurring, and everything else, all the other details actually fall underneath that. And so when we start with that, when we lead with that, that's a universal language. Public servants grasp to that. So that's what we've been doing.
Tell me about the community in Ohio, the Tigray community. That's who you're representing today. Tell me about how strong the community is, what kind of projects you're working on. Just so we hear a little bit about, where are the pockets of the stronger or more active Tigrayan communities, and Ohio comes up from time to time. So tell me about the community and the strength and the what you all are working on.
Right. So we're about 2,000 strong. We've been in registered 501c3 since 2013, but the community has always done work together since 2002. And when it comes to activities and in terms of advocacy, if we can stay focused on that, we are taking our efforts from the city council resolution. We are talking with the county to get a resolution done. We're also talking with the state representatives and folks on the House Senate that are being informed. And all of this information that we've been able to compile and the resolution that we've gotten done, we've been forwarding it to those individuals. And so we are working with them to get resolutions made on that end. Also, we've been talking with the international head of the American Red Cross to help us with what's going on the ground. They do this program called Restoring Broken Links, which can help us get in touch with our families back home as well. We've been doing fundraisers for the humanitarian aid organizations and for the refugees in Sudan and Djibouti as well.
Amazing, really amazing. And only 2,000. I mean, it's not a huge community, but yet such a big impact.
Right, 100%. And we never think in terms of not being huge. You know, it's our resiliency that matters most.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, when I started this out, I talked about how I'm so intrigued by young people and what moves you. Tell me a little bit about your background. You said you were born here. How did you first get involved in all of this? Were you active in and attached to Tigray the same way pre-genocide, or did a lot of this come after when you saw what was happening? Or what's your story and what motivates you?
So I've been back home. I've visited Tigray. Of course, it impacts me because my mother and father are from back home. I've met my family who's back home. I've been back home. And you know, we were planning on a trip to go back home as well, but we couldn't because of this. So, I mean, I've always been proud of my heritage and my culture. I've always let people know where I'm from and, you know, who I am. And my sister and I, were very, like, kind of on the background, you know, working hard to, you know, take on the responsibilities of the business, but also support my mother, who's also the chair and sits on the board and is very, very active in the community. You know, here and for what's going on back home. And then I realized, you know, we weren't getting enough attention, you know, compared to the Ukrainian community, which I'm happy they are. But I realized we weren't getting that. And so I started to think to myself, okay, what can I use from my business mind and from my community mind? Because we do a lot of in the community. We do backpack drives, toy drives, coat drives. We take care of our community here in Columbus. So I thought to myself, okay, what can we do? And so I first started out with reaching out to the local media, the newspaper, the biggest newspaper here in Columbus. They had written an article about our restaurant. So I thought to myself, if they're going to write about our restaurant, they can write about what's going on back home. And so I reached out to them and we got a front page article written about what's going on back home. They interviewed the community. Now we have a good relationship with them. And that was the first piece because I wanted to make sure that everyone had no excuse to not be aware. And if they weren't aware, we have the Columbus Dispatch to speak for us as well. And so send that to all of the people that we need to get in touch with. And then also we created a calendar for the community for the summertime so that we could do multiple things. One, we started mental health and wellness programming. So I got the community connected with a certified breath coach who's a Black woman, and she's been doing this for years and years. And she teaches balance, finding calm throughout stress, and, you know, finding the internal solutions to the internal issues that were occurring, because of course what's going on back home is very depressing, saddening, but we can be empowered within ourselves to combat that in a healthy way. Yoga, meditation, hikes, but also all the events that are going on in Columbus for the summertime. We organize them so that we could do multiple things. One, attend them, of course, but two, pass out flyers to let people know what's going on back home, but also to see what our city can offer us at the same time. So we're trying to kill three birds with one stone minimum, with our advocacy, but also bring ourselves together and then see what our city can offer. And then you never know who you're going to run into at these events. You know, you never know. And so we were able to do that as well. So those were a couple of things that we've been doing.
Was there any resistance? So, you know, you said you were able to get press, you know, leveraging those relationships, which is really smart. Was there any resistance to getting the resolution passed? Did you have any issues, or were people on board when they learned about just how bad the situation is?
So there was minimal resistance, and I chalk it up to political phrasing and words like that. For example, on the resolution, we had informed them about the drone strikes that have been happening, but they removed it for no reason. We gave them articles and evidence, as well as the man made famine, as well as the updated numbers of those who are in famine now, which I didn't understand why those things were removed. And I told them this is just an excuse, because famine is a political word, even though it shouldn't be. It's a fact. Our people are living in this condition. In fact, one of our community members, her sister had passed away from a drone strike. They had no reason for this. So I've realized that was just political. Um, but in terms of us advocating and pushing for peace, stability, humanitarian aid, and things of that nature, and all the language in between, they were pretty much on board 100%. And they were with us, and they were compassionate, like I said. And so that was good to see. There hasn't been no backlash or anything like that. And that's because our messaging strategy. And that's because we wanted to make sure that we kept the people who are going to help us in mind at the same time. What are the threats that can occur? And how can we mitigate those threats as much as possible? And that was by our messaging. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the way it's written is really actually probably helped, because people would look silly if they try to have a conversation or try to have, say something negative about a resolution that's calling for peace, that's calling for, what I mean, protection of people. And so I think the way it's written is really smart as well. So kudos to whoever helped you guys draft it and put it together. And yeah, sure that some things were taken out, but it's not obvious to us. It's really well done. Do you think this can be duplicated in other cities? Do you think that's an easy thing to do? Do you think it's a difficult thing to do? Is there a blueprint for this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it needs to be duplicated in every city across the country, because if we can mobilize our communities to advocate locally and move up that chain of command, like I was saying, that is going to create that groundswell, that foundational support, that grassroots effort, because the real change and meaningful change happens on the local levels, and that is accessible. You can go to your city council meetings. They're on Mondays. They're free. And that's where you can meet these people face to face, and you can inform them face to face what is happening. And, we've been doing our best to communicate with those at the top, but a lot of times we speak to their aides. A lot of times action doesn't really take place as important as we need it to take place, as soon as we need it to take place. And this is accessible. You can go and do this. And so, for our community and all the communities throughout the country, it needs to be done. And there is a blueprint now, because we've executed this up until this point. We've actualized it and brought it to fruition. And like I said, there are so many people who helped us do this. The community here in Columbus helped a lot. Like I said, Dr. Henok, Izana, Abai, all these different individuals will come together to help you in your community to get this done. And we basically have our blueprint now as well. All of the drafts that we've written to make this resolution happen, the statement that we put together for this resolution to happen, all of these things can be shared and can be done in your community. So it just requires you to reach out, and we can help it make it happen.
Absolutely. I think and this is why I love talking to young Tagaru. You make things that feel difficult and impossible so easy. And like you said, you've done it. And so now you can advise people on how to do it. And I love that you keep calling out the names of people whose shoulders you stand on, the people who helped you, put this together. I think that's really beautiful. So I'm going to give you the last words. What advice do you have for activists and helping get something similar passed in their cities? And also, how can people get in touch with you? I think there's going to be a lot of interest, to try and make this happen in their city. So I'm going to give you the last words, Moses.
So, firstly, I just want to let everyone know that this wasn't just an individual thing that I was able to do by myself. It required a lot of help, and it required a lot of persistence. And just because you don't have a business or whatever the case is, doesn't mean this is not attainable. This can be done. And it requires you to follow up with these people so that they recognize how serious you are. You know, a lot of these folks, they're not from Tigray, they're not from Ethiopia, they don't know anything about this. They live in their life and they're taking care of the issues that they have to worry about. And when you show up and you follow up and you really nurture this as a real relationship, then those people are going to show up for you too. And they always told us that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And that means that you have to continuously raise your voice. You have to continuously follow up, stay on top of these individuals, that you have to reach out for help too. Don't think you have to do this on your own. There are communities across the country that are willing to help and do whatever they can to make this happen. Because the goal is clear. You know, we want to get these bills passed so that we have the real action that is going to take place to make sure that the international community can see what's going on, and you can't dispute it. And so, like I said, the persistence, you have to follow through. You have to go and actually meet these people, go to your city council, you know, understand how are they connected? How does this process actually occur? What can you get done? And the communities outside of Columbus are larger than ours, of course. So that even brings much more leverage to the table as well. And they want to actually engage with you. So we've asked our city council members to come to our events. Lourdes, she actually is the chair of immigration, refugee, and migrant affairs. And she came to Selassie. She came to our church. And then she celebrated with us. She shared about her family fleeing from Cuba. She broke down in tears, telling us about how much this resonates with her. And she told us, tell me anytime you have any event, Ashenda, Ikatis, whatever it is, anything you're doing in the community, even if it's not a holiday, tell us, we want to be there. You know, that's going to get you to the point where you're not only building a political relationship, you're building a real relationship with people. And so that organicness, it cannot be, it's not here today, gone tomorrow. It's a strong tie. And it's going to inspire us to be more involved in our communities and more involved in how things get done on the highest level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Building relationships. It goes beyond just this moment. It goes beyond just stopping the genocide. There's so much more. Thank you so much, Moses. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for folks and for other young people who I'm sure are going to want to do something similar? How do they get in touch with you? Is there a website? Should they call your business? What's the best way to reach you?
I think that the best way is for them to reach out to TMH and for us to connect that way. That way we can vet who the right people are, you know, Excellent. And we can make sure that we're connecting with the right people, and it'll grow our community a lot closer together as well. And I think that'll be the best way to do it. Absolutely. So if they can reach out to TMH and to the organization, then we can facilitate that.
That's great.
I'll share our email. I'll share my personal email as well with them.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much, Moses. Thank you for all you're doing and your energy. And I think you're onto something. I really do. I think we can duplicate this all over the country to help get to what we need, which are those Ethiopian peace bills to get passed. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you, Ohio, for being an example of what's possible if you try. And like you said, it's not about numbers, it's about the drive. So thanks so much. And hopefully we'll be talking again after these resolutions pass in dozens of cities across the country.
Definitely. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Moses.